first thing I want to tell you about is that you can do a 21-day sugar detox, and there are 5 reasons why. So here's the first one. It's going to help reset your palate. Over the course of the 3 weeks, your palate changes. I mean, the way that food tastes really changes, because when you strip out the refined foods, you strip out the sweetened foods, you strip out tons of very, very sweet fruit that we all tend to rely on as a sugar crutch, food tastes different. The second reason why the 21-day sugar detox can help, you're changing your choices for that period of time, and that is extremely powerful. We want you to create new habits, which is another point that does happen on a program, but before it becomes a habit, it is a new choice, right? So you guys know what it's like to change your food. Until it becomes second nature, it's a conscious decision that you have to make. You are changing your choices, you are creating new habits. The next thing is it can help you to find community and support, and perhaps a coach. We have 21-day sugar detox certified coaches. If you go to the website, we have coaches for you. And making these changes is not easy. You need people to talk to you. You need somebody to say, like, I'm really craving sugar right now. What should I do? You know, this stuff is covered in the program, but it's so much easier to reach out to somebody else who's been there, who's going through the same thing, who's in an office where there's cake all over the place. And then the last thing about any kind of program that's going to change your food for a pretty significant period of time, at least a couple of weeks, right? What we want you to do in that period of time is learn how to cook and plan meals differently. I know that a lot of people didn't grow up learning how to cook, and that is the single most critical skill to getting this stuff to work for you, because I can tell you what to eat until I'm blue in the face, but if you can't figure out how to put it together at home and put it on your plate, then we're not getting anywhere, which is one of the reasons why I still make recipes for you guys. It's not that you want more recipes, you really need help making it easier in the kitchen. And that is something that when you just dig in and practice and you try the recipes and you realize it's not that hard. So that's number one. How do you curb sugar and carb cravings? Is you strip that stuff out for a period of time. You have to just say enough is enough, right? The second point on how to curb sugar and carb cravings is really that you need to balance your plate in the following order. You need to focus on protein first. You need to focus on healthy fats next, and then carbs last. So here's the thing, adequate protein on your plate is what's going to help you not crave sugar and carbs. And I don't mean sweet potato, because people are not craving sweet potato. We are craving cookies and brownies, right? We need adequate amino acids in order for our brain to get the signal that we are not going to be craving sugar. So Julia Ross, who's an amazing author, she's written The Mood Cure and The Diet Cure. She talks all about amino acid therapies. But here's the thing, you can get these amino acids in your food. So we need to be eating protein. She recommends at least 20 grams of protein per meal. What that looks like in terms of a portion is about 3 ounces of protein. Protein first. Second is healthy fats. We want to focus on healthy, naturally occurring fats. They're going to help our satiety. They're going to slow the digestive process just enough so that we're getting satiety from our meal. It takes time to feel satiety. It can take about 20 minutes to feel full from a meal. So if we're just scarfing down cereal and pasta and we're not feeling full, well, we just ate it so fast anyway, and it's not the right type of nutrition for our body. Our body loves the satiety that comes from healthy fats. Part of that is that fats are helping us to digest and absorb fat-soluble vitamins. If we're trying to get these vitamins, they're actually pretty tough to get in a lot of our food. Vitamins A, D, E, and K are what are fat-soluble vitamins. So we need to be getting healthy fats. It's going to help satiety, help to get our nutrition absorbing. So third, in building your plate, you're going to focus on nutrient-rich carbohydrates. It's that we're eating carbohydrates that are a macronutrient that's going to give you calories that come with a lot of micronutrients, so vitamins and minerals. They don't carry calories with them, but the vitamins and minerals are what are really at the deepest level going to signal your cells, hey, we've gotten what we need from food. We need vitamins and minerals to run the process of creating energy in the body. If we don't have vitamins and minerals, we know what happens. We're eating these stripped down foods, mostly carb-rich foods, and we never actually feel full. I know a lot of you watching are like, yes, this is it. Get your pen and paper. You want to know. Here's the thing. First thing you need to know about figuring out how many carbs are right for you is that You want to eat carbs according to not only your level of activity, but the type of activity that you're doing. So what do I mean by that? The types of activity that don't really require a lot of carbohydrates all the time, low intensity workouts. I'm talking things like yoga, Pilates, walking, weightlifting doesn't require a ton of carbohydrates. That doesn't mean people who do those things shouldn't eat carbs. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a framework for what doesn't require it for that energy. To feel okay doing those things, you don't need a ton of carbohydrates. So if you are doing high intensity workouts for more than 5 minutes, this is generally what CrossFit is. This would be most types of aerobic endeavors like racing, marathon running. That's like a moderate level of activity. If you're sprinting, it's high intensity. If you're walking, it's low intensity. And if you're basically jogging / running, that's a moderate intensity. If you are eating carbs according to your activity type and you are doing CrossFit, you're gonna need more carbohydrate. Period. Unless your CrossFit gym happens to program more of what I would call strength bias. So if you go to a CrossFit gym and you're just kind of walking in and lifting and you're not doing what's called metabolic conditioning or a Metcon, then you'd be okay eating a little bit less carbohydrate. The second factor is eating carbohydrates according to your body type and your own body's response to a higher or lower carbohydrate level. So here's an example. Do you hold on to fat very specifically around, ladies, your bra line, around your lats, your wings back here? That's a sign that you may be eating more carbohydrate than you really need. So here's a great example. I definitely hold on to body fat there, for sure, 100%. So if I'm eating more carbohydrate, then I'll pack more fat on there. And when I drop my carbs for a period of time, I start to lean out right there. Now, I had a coach who I was consulting with at my CrossFit gym years ago who has a totally different body type than I do and is extremely lean on her back. And I said to her, how are you feeling? And she said her energy wasn't feeling too good. And I looked at her back and I tested her body fat and I was like, you can handle a lot more carbohydrate because your body fat, the way that you're holding body fat is telling me that you can handle a lot more carbohydrate. The third point about figuring out how many are right for you, you hate it when I say this. I know you do, because you want me to give you a prescription. You want me to say, eat this many carbs and that's your answer. It doesn't work like that. It just doesn't. You have to write down what you're doing. You have to track what's going in. You have to write down what your activity is, and then you have to see how you feel, right? So when I talked about eating more carbohydrates for a period of time and then less, I'm paying very close attention to how do I feel? How's my energy at the gym? How does it feel when I get in there? And I'll tell you what, actually lately, since my carbs are a little bit lower, I don't really feel like getting on the treadmill. I mean, I know some people never feel like getting on the treadmill. I actually enjoy running on a treadmill. It helps me get a pace that I can't get on my own, and I just kind of go, right? But I feel fine lifting weights. So that's something you really need to pay attention to, is how do you feel? And you guys, the biggest thing that I've experienced in the last 6+ years of working with people, with talking to you guys, writing books, coaching, you want someone to tell you exactly what to do. And the problem is I can't tell you, Elizabeth, I can't tell you, Agnes, Selena, I can't tell you exactly what is right for your body, because I'm not living in your body. I'm not next to you watching what you're eating every day. I'm not experiencing how you feel. You have to pay attention to that. And so some signs that you're not getting enough carbs for your activity level are low energy. You don't feel great in the gym. Your energy is not good. You're not sleeping well. Your mood isn't good. Those are all really big signs that you're not getting enough carbs. And for the folks who have trouble gaining weight, get in more carbs, for sure, 100%. Now, for people who are like, am I eating too many carbs? If you're really struggling to lose body fat and the type of exercise you're doing doesn't quite demand the carbohydrates that you are eating, you need to lower them. In the overall balance of things, it is about an energy balance that's going in the wrong direction. So what I mean by that is, if your overall caloric intake is too high, you'll be in a situation where your body is probably gonna hold on to more weight. And if you're at a deficit, then it might lose weight. That's not an exact science. Some people are like, well, I'm eating at a deficit, why aren't I losing any weight? Well, because it's not quite that simple, but at some point it matters. At some point it matters. Are you eating far too many calories for you or far too few calories for you? How much energy are you putting in the tank, and what kind of energy is that? This is another one of those moments where you just have to get real with yourself. If you have goals, you have to adjust what you're doing. If you don't have goals, I don't care what you eat, but it seems like you guys have some goals. 100%, hands down, most important thing is to be prepared. Most important. I don't care where you are, life is gonna get crazy, it's gonna get busy, you might be traveling, you're at work, you're on the road. 100%, the most important thing is to be prepared, to cook food ahead of time, to have snacks on hand, to have things that are easy to grab, hard-boiled eggs, pre-cut veggies, things like that, freezer meals, something you throw in the crock pot. It's really important that you're prepared, because guess what? You're gonna get hungry. You are going to get hungry. At some point, you're going to get hungry. I guarantee it. And if you leave the house without food and you don't know where your next meal is coming from, I'm not trying to make people crazy here. Like, oh, let me think about my food all day. But you guys, I think about my food all day. How do I stay on track? Well, I'm one step ahead of the game. I'm eating breakfast. I'm like, what's for lunch? And it's not in a crazy way. It's in a I'm going to be prepared way. Generally, what I tell folks is, if athletic performance is your goal, then athletic performance is your goal. And if fat loss is your goal, then fat loss is your goal. Now, I know you don't want to tank out at the gym while you're trying to lose fat. So I think that's really what she's saying here. So really, fat loss is kind of the primary goal. So we don't want to overdo it with the carbohydrates. But if she's doing CrossFit, I talked about this earlier, right? We need to get the carbs. Now, I've got an entire guide to paleo carbs in Practical Paleo. But I want to give you guys a quick example here. We need to prepare carbohydrates ahead of time, because if you're eating paleo carbs, you have to cook them ahead. You can't, there's fruit, of course, but if I want you to get some starchy stuff in around your workouts, you have to prepare that ahead, because you can't just bite into a sweet potato. You've got to cook that bad boy first. So 100 grams of sweet potato, which is a little more than half a cup, is going to give you about 21 grams of carbohydrate. The same amount of white potato, also 21 grams of carbohydrate, and the same amount of white rice is about 28 grams of carbohydrate. Now, that doesn't seem like it's that much more. It's 7 grams more for the white rice. But here's the thing. Let's say she adds a half a cup of white rice to 2 meals out of the day. That's an extra 14 grams of carbs. That's almost an extra whole serving. And so we're getting a lot more carbohydrate from something like white rice. I would challenge you, if you've been trying to eat strict paleo, reintroduce white rice. See how you feel with it. I'm not saying put the white rice on your plate and don't put your, 3 kinds of vegetables and animal protein. I don't want you to push something else off your plate. I want you to add it on top. So whatever you had, even if you had butternut squash and you were thinking, that's my carb, add some white rice. See how you feel. See how you do, see how your digestion is, and see how your energy is for sure. I also would recommend that you have at least about 25 grams of carbs per meal. And if you're doing CrossFit, you probably want at least about 100 grams of carbs a day, at least. So if you're not getting that much, after you add up what you're doing, if you enter your food into a calculator for a day and you're like, oh, I was only getting 60 grams of carbs. Well, no wonder you're tired, girl. So get some more. I would say not to fret at all about balsamic vinegar that you've reduced. In the grand scheme of things, if you're putting a balsamic reduction on some Brussels sprouts, you're doing just fine. I would not worry about the sugar in that at all. Might not really be a physical craving. I'm a really big fan of Gretchen Rubin and her work. She has written a book called Better Than Before, which I have really learned so much from in the last year on how people behave and how we respond to different expectations and how our habits are. And one of the things she talks about is folks who are abstainers versus moderators. And for the record, I am an abstainer. I'm not good at moderation. I'm really good at saying, for these 5 days, this is what I eat, this is what I don't eat, and maybe for this one day, I'm gonna have this thing, or for these 2 days, I'm gonna have this thing, and giving myself either a yes or a no, red light or a green light. And you might be, Cheryl, one of those people for whom moderation doesn't work. It doesn't work for everyone. And I do think that there's an element of, there are things in our lives that perhaps at some point in time we need to abstain from, and then we can find a way to be moderate with. I think that there are things like that. I think we can have a different relationship with some of these activities or habits or things that we used to have issues with. Like, I do think that, but I don't think that that's an evolution for everyone. I don't think everyone goes from I either have it or I don't to I can have it sometimes. I just think it's a different personality type. So I would look out for that, and I would definitely check out her book. If you feel good, if you're at a healthy weight, if your energy is good, there is not an amount of fruit that I would say is too much fruit. Now, if you were telling me that you feel like you crave it and you want to lose weight, then I would say maybe to scale back and have it once a day. But it sounds like you're doing just fine, so I really wouldn't worry too much about it. Oatmeal is a really dense source of carbs, but in terms of nutrition, not the best. So what I would recommend if you want to eat oatmeal, because I've definitely gone through periods where I was like, oatmeal is the worst. And then I was like, well, oatmeal has a place, right? And I think the truth is, on its own as a meal, I don't think it's sufficient. When it's combined with protein and fat, when it's eaten perhaps as a post-workout, you can be eating about a half cup of cooked oatmeal and get about 30 grams of carbs from that. So it's a really great dense source of carbs, but I don't want it to cause the exclusion of much more nutrient dense carbs like vegetables and fruits. If you're having that issue, have some kind of healthy carbs, like have the carbs if you feel like you really need that. Make sure that you also have some protein and or some fat. But here's the other thing is, when it happens, recognize when it happens, recognize what you ate before, how long has it been since you ate, and chances are the meal that you ate before probably didn't have much protein and fat in it. And really the way that we deal with blood sugar episodes or dips is that we are preventative. So we eat meals that are balanced, we eat meals that have a lot more protein and fat, so that when we get hungry, we just get hungry. And what happens when we get hungry, if we have well-regulated blood sugar where it's not going to have that crash, is that a hormone in our body called glucagon can actually pull sugar from stores to help our blood sugar not crash. Now, our blood sugar is very tightly regulated, so unless you have clinical hypoglycemia, your blood sugar is not really going to crash. Your body is so well regulated, or unless you have diabetes, of course, you do have a situation where your body can't be pulling from stores as efficiently as it would if you didn't have diabetes. So I'm not an expert on depression. I'm not an expert on that connection, but I can tell you what I know, and maybe this will help. So number one, I would recommend The Mood Cure by Julia Ross. I would highly recommend that book. That's really gonna help. But what's happening, about 95% of serotonin, which is the neurotransmitter that helps us to feel happy, is made in our gut. And so when our gut's not working in a balanced way, good luck making serotonin. So if you maybe have some kind of candida overgrowth, if the bacterial balance is off in your gut, and when you eat sugar and starches, it throws things even further off, well, you don't really stand a chance for making a healthy level of serotonin because it's made in the gut. And when things are out of balance in one way, it throws everything out of balance. I don't go out of my way to get more fats, but what I do is make sure that I'm not only eating extremely lean meats all the time. So like if you eat chicken breast at every single meal, if you eat chicken and tuna and other types of lean fish and lean steaks and you don't ever get fats and you don't cook with fats, then you're probably not getting much. Just being aware of where it is in your foods and making sure that you have some at each meal. And you don't have to go crazy with it, but making sure that you have some. That's plenty. Let me scratch my nose. Shoot, man, I want to eat a gluten-free bagel because it's fun. I'm Italian, Jewish from New Jersey. Trust me, I get it. Hold, please. Sorry, there's a little bug here. I live in a city, there are sirens, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much. And I have to sit here and smile like a weirdo for a few seconds because otherwise this thing will cut off and then I won't be able to give you guys a nice screen